Oh, right. Yeah. I've been wanting to do this for ages. I've been wanting to do it for ages because obviously I love a paranormal thing. And Gettysburg, where this battle took place, has got to be up there with the most active, maybe Skinwalker Ranch, definitely in America. In fact, the isn't still that clip of the soldiers walking through the trees or something walking through the trees, to be fair. I'm just saying soldiers because I definitely think that there's soldiers there still. But um, I'm sure that's still the most baffling footage in it, even to experts. The clip of the something moving through the trees at Gettysburg. Um, so I've wanted to do this for a while because of that. Because like I say, it has to be. I listen, and especially now, I'm listening to loads of paranormal, and yeah, Gettysburg seems to be very active. Let's just say that. But yeah, um, also I've started the Jesse James book, and the Jesse James. To be honest, he's barely even come into it yet. It goes from his dad all the way through, basically what happened. But it kind of I can see why because it what happens before him results in why he's him. Really, why he turned out to be who he was. He really was a product of his environment. But one thing that's shocking about it, I mean, when the Trump thing was all going on and do you know what I mean? I mean, it's still not just in America, but I think probably in America it was the most violent in the political thing in terms of attacking each other and whatever at protests and things. But I remember seeing people around the time when Trump was elected and they're saying the country's never been more divided. But listening to that book, I mean, the book's not even about the Civil War, it's about Jesse James, but the things Americans was willing to do to each other. Now, there's multiple reasons for that. I think because it's a country descended from English, Scottish, all of us Germans, and do you know what I mean? None of us like each other. So like it's in your DNA to not like each other. But to be fair, I'm listening to this Jesse James book and I'm thinking, Jesus, like the things they're doing and the hatred that one side has for the other, even down to something in that book where the Confederates were being late. This isn't the word, but it's like savages. It was something along them lines, and they adopted. They was being called out from the other side, from the Union, I suppose. Um, and then they kind of adopted it, and Trump supporters adopted despicable. Was it something like that? Something like that. But they was being called like Trump supporters was being called that, and they had, and it just like I'm listening to this book and I'm thinking this is crazy that it's so similar, at least to when Trump was in. It's so similar to the kind of. But yeah, when I saw people say like the country has never been more divided, well, you're not doing what you was doing back then. But there's the other funny thing was I'm listening to this book, I'm thinking, Jesus, Americans were savages to each other, like literally. Like Jesse James, to be honest, was not a good person. Billy the Kid, like he's like the outlaw that you think of. Jesse James was really. Do you know what I mean? At the moment, a lot of what is that is him and Frank going up to like old ex-Union soldiers' farms in their area and just shooting them down in front of their family. Like, there's nothing courageous or like honorable or anything in that. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's just a bad person. But it's like everybody was. It talks about. I'm sorry to go on this rant, but it's just fascinating to me. But it said that in the kind of gunslinging, what is now known as the gunslinging thing, it wasn't just like your outlaws that gun. Like that's how like politicians and people settled their. Like it's crazy. It's crazy how much violence America was born into. To be honest, Like, yeah, and I did think that the country was divided for the Donald Trump thing, but nothing like back then. But anyway, yeah, this kind of is something I've always kind of heard about Gettysburg. And like I was saying, mainly through paranormal. A lot of people have had paranormal things. Some matey that lived like right there. In fact, the house that's on his land um was there then and was like held 500. I don't know. It was something crazy, but he was like he lived right next to it, and he's like you could constantly hear people cursing, well, swearing and moaning and kind of coming from the trees around it and that. And yeah, but it's not just like loads of people have things of Gettysburg. Yeah, but because of how bloody it is, I think it is called the most bloodiest battle of the Civil War. Honestly, just from the Jesse James book alone, I mean, it's brutal. But anyway. Oh yeah, that's another thing I was going to say just before we start this. I'm sitting here thinking, Jesus, Americans were savages to each other, and then they start saying, there's some group, like some area of America at this point. I mean, it's America, but it is divided north and south still, even after the war finished. But then they said there was this group wherever. He's like, and they were known to be extra brutal. I don't think they took sides in the north-south thing, but they were just their like own thing. And he's like, and they were known to bite people's noses off, bite people's fingers off. Um, and they was all English, Scottish, and Irish. And I was thinking, I'll shut my mouth, shall I? Because yeah, to be honest, our history, but I suppose actually saying that the history of the UK, not necessarily country fighting itself, no, but definitely like yeah, England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales have all been beefing and done horrendous things to each other. But anyway, I think America's is just crazy because it's countrymen against. It's crazy. But anyway, I'm gonna shut up now. Gettysburg. Let's go.
June 1863.
Oh, Jesus.
200,000 are dead, and the Civil War is barely half over. Now, General Robert E. Lee aims to move the war from Virginia and win a major battle in the North. He hopes to stoke the fire of a growing peace movement.
That's the other thing about Jesse James as well, is that although they was more south, they were a guerrilla group. His group, they weren't really part of either, and they would rob south as well as north. Like they would rob anyone, and the reason that they have a story of them robbing someone, and the mate saying, "What are you doing?" Like yeah, like I'm Confederate too, and he's like, and then they're just like, yeah, well, why aren't you fighting then? And that's just how they looked at it. They'll rob any, like that's what I mean. At least, like with these men, they're kind of fighting in the armies and fighting. But Jesse James at that was just like basically doing what they wanted, like and brutal stuff. Yeah, but anyway, let's go.
5,000-man Army of Northern Virginia moves swiftly into south-central Pennsylvania.
Is that where the cookies come from?
Union General George Gordon Meade and his 95,000-strong Army of the Potomac moves toward Lee. Lee concentrates his army where 10 roads converge. Gettysburg. Lee's move north will spark the largest battle in American history. It will last for 3 days.
3 days.
The battle starts west of Gettysburg. Union General John Buford's cavalrymen shoot at lead elements of Confederate General Henry Heath's division before falling back as Heath advances. Buford holds near Gettysburg until General John Reynolds' First Corps arrives. Infantry against infantry, fighting intensifies on both sides of the Chambersburg Pike. As the highest-ranking Union officer on the field, Major General John Reynolds escalates the battle as he desperately tries to support Buford. While ordering a Wisconsin regiment forward, he is shot in the back of the neck and killed, just as the battle begins to escalate. Confederate General Robert Rodes' division arrives on Oak Hill. Though his division is twice the size of his opponent, Rodes' initial attacks are poorly coordinated and repulsed. Then, General Jubal Early's division arrives from the northeast. Despite Union reinforcements, Rodes and Early manage to break their right flank. The Yankees are fighting a losing battle on the left, too. After a savage firefight in Herbst Woods, they fall back to Seminary Ridge. Cannons and small arms blast the attacking rebels, reinforced by Dorsey Pender's division. But numbers come to bear, and the Union line collapses. Some escape via an unfinished railroad bed. Others are trapped in Gettysburg streets. The defeated Yankees reform on Cemetery Hill, where General Howard has left a brigade and an array of cannons. The Confederates probe, but do not attack.
That's kind of crazy because obviously the Confederate is the rebel side, and I mean, I don't even know if it would be classed as the actual battle, but Bloody Bill Anderson, is it Bill Anderson? Yeah, Bloody Bill anyway. With that battle where he died, like, the Confederates got crushed. Like, they shouldn't have even bothered. Do you know what I mean? They should have just turned around and left because they was in, like... But then saying that, they'd been in that situation. But here, you see that force that they have, and that's the force of rebels. Like, but then I suppose that... Anyway, let's go.
It was one of the bloodiest days of the war, but the worst was yet to come. By the afternoon, the Confederates have wrapped around the Union position, which now resembles a giant fishhook. But the Federals occupy the high ground, and General Meade's interior lines will allow him to easily reinforce threatened sectors.
Smart.
In the afternoon, Union General Dan Sickles moves his Third Corps to the Peach Orchard and the Emmitsburg Road, where he thought he could better use his artillery. But this creates a lengthy bulge in the Union line, and Sickles lacks the men to defend it. General Meade is forced to send his entire Fifth Corps and parts of others to reinforce Sickles, opening gaps in his center and on his right. General Lee orders Longstreet to make the main attack upon the Union left. General Hill is to threaten the center, and General Ewell is to assault the Union right. Longstreet's divisions under John Bell Hood and Lafayette McLaws line up on Seminary Ridge, along with Richard Anderson's division of Hill's Corps, ready to make the assault. It is one of the hottest days of the year. Advancing under a hail of fire, Hood's brigades commingle and split apart. Some slamming the Third Corps troops at Devil's Den, while others assault Little Round Top, where just arrived Fifth Corps soldiers await them. Both sides send in reinforcements. control of Devil's Den changes hands 3 times. Alabama and Texas soldiers charge Little Round Top again and again, but fall back. At last, a bayonet charge by Maine troops sends the exhausted attackers back for good. The Union's extreme left flank is secure. Meade scrambles reinforcements from the 2nd and 5th Corps to support Sickles. As McLaws' Confederate division enters the fray, the action shifts toward the peach orchard, which falls quickly. The fight for the wheat field nearby is less decisive, changing hands 6 times in some of the battle's bloodiest combat. Hood and McLaws' men push on toward Cemetery Ridge, joined by part of Anderson's division. There, troops that vacated to reinforce Sickles have left a half-mile gap near the Union center. The Union Army can be cut in 2, but reinforcements via interior lines save the day. The exhausted rebels are pushed back. Other Confederates renew efforts to capture Little Round Top, entering what comes to be called the Valley of Death. They too are thrown back. The fighting finally ceases on the south end of the battlefield. In what General Longstreet termed the best 3 hours fighting ever done by any troops on any battlefield, more than 14,000 men became casualties of war, and the battle is far from over. At dusk, General Ewell moves on the Union right. 2 of Jubal Early's brigades sweep toward Cemetery Hill, obscured by the gathering darkness. The Union line is thinly held by battle-weary 11th Corps soldiers. Louisianans and North Carolinians overwhelm them. Portions of East Cemetery Hill are captured. Meade's army will lose the battle if Cemetery Hill falls. But Union reinforcements surge onto the hill before Confederates can exploit their gains. Early's men are thrown back as General Edward Johnson's division moves to attack Culp's Hill. Most of the breastworks on Culp's Hill are empty, their brigades sent to reinforce Sickles. Only 1,300 Union soldiers under General George Sears Greene remain to face Johnson's attacking 4,500. Greene's men hold firm against numerous nighttime assaults, but some of Johnson's men gain a foothold in the abandoned trenches on the lower hill. By 10 p.m., the day's fighting comes to a halt. The past 2 days have borne 37,000 casualties. By now, Gettysburg is the bloodiest battle of the war, and another day of horrible combat is yet to come. General Lee sees an opportunity, hoping to take Culp's Hill in a morning assault. He adds 3 brigades to bolster his left, but General Meade has ordered the return of the 5 brigades that left Culp's Hill to aid Sickles. Bolstered by a stream of reinforcements, Lee is badly outnumbered. For 7 hours, the battle rages. Initial Union attacks are stymied, including an ill-fated move near Spangler Spring. But by 11 a.m., the Union numbers weigh too heavily, and the Confederates are forced out of their captured entrenchments. Lee now orders a massive assault upon the Union center. General George Pickett leads the only fresh division in Lee's army, and he forms the core of the attack under Longstreet's command. Meade is ready, having anticipated such a move the night before. He is the first Union Army commander to decisively outguess Robert E. Lee. At 1 p.m., Lee bombards the Union defenses, hoping to soften them up. Meade responds, and together, they create the largest artillery barrage in the Western Hemisphere. Ultimately, Lee's bombardment fails. Nevertheless, Pickett's attack commences at 3 p.m. 12,000 men emerge from Seminary Ridge. They must cross 1 mile of open ground. Union artillery opens at long range and tears gaps in the Confederate line. Meade orders more than 20,000 reinforcements to converge upon the center. Ohio, New York, and Vermont troops position themselves upon the flank of the Confederate advance. The Confederates are moving into a great pincer of Yankees. The Southerners enter rifle range. And fewer than half cross the Emmitsburg Road. But with second and third line troops coming up, some manage to breach the Union position. A ferocious melee ensues. As tens of thousands of Union reinforcements arrive, the Confederate attackers dwindle. Lee's men don't stand a chance. Those who cross the stone wall are either killed or captured. Lee's great moment of opportunity has become his greatest defeat by far. Scarcely half of the men who made the attack returned to Seminary Ridge. As events unfold in the center, cavalrymen are active on the flanks. In hopes of threatening the Union rear, Confederate General Jeb Stuart's horsemen try to swing around the Union Army. They are stopped east of Gettysburg by Union cavalrymen under General David M. Gregg. General George Custer leads a charge of Michiganders that highlights the repulse. South of Gettysburg, Union cavalry hit the Confederate flank and rear with no success. Charge and countercharge produce no real result for either side. The Battle of Gettysburg is over. Lee has lost, but remains on the field. He hopes to repulse a counterattack on July 4th to even the odds. Meade does not take the bait. That night, Lee pulls back through the mountains to the Potomac River. His lumbering wagon train of wounded is miles long. Meade plans to attack, but Lee's river position is too strong. The Army of Northern Virginia, beaten as it had never been beaten before, moves back into Virginia. And the war will go on another 21 months.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's the thing he says in that, because Missouri, which is where the James gang obviously come from, but that was like the last. Even after the war, they kind of kept, like it says that on that farm, on Jesse James's stepdad's farm, they still had slaves and whatever. So Missouri was like the last place that, even after the war. But when that fell, I can't remember. Yeah, but when, like, basically the Union took Missouri, it says that like the bloody Bill Andersons and all that kind of went, and people in the town was there to see them off, like, because they were respected by a lot of people. But then it goes through the thing, and they all, like, they lose basically. But then it says that after it, he's like, that because the truth of the matter, the reason why Missouri fell was because the people in Missouri wanted, like, the reason why bloody Bill Anderson's that battle was lost is because Missouri wanted it to. And there's like, for every one family that turned up to wave them goodbye and salute them and whatever, show them respect, there was like, to every one of them families, there was three families that sent their men to fight in the war, or their, like, young men. Do you know what I mean? So, and then the other thing, you had the black slaves, the now freed slaves of the South, fighting in the Union Army, and you know that they're fighting with a whole different type of passion. But that's what I mean. Listening to the Jesse James book, it's like, you kind of, what gets painted of Jesse James is nothing like what he was really like, and more Billy the Kid is the part. Like, Billy the Kid is more. He is different to that, like, to them, right? Jesse James and that, they've done some brutal things, and just things with absolutely no respect. But Billy the Kid was actually different to that. He wasn't an outlaw like that, but he gets put in the same thing. And literally, before I did just well, before I started the Jesse James book, I listened to the Billy the Kid, or the guy that said he was him. But yeah, you see the two different. Like, Billy the Kid is not like that. So I mean, his revenge mission come from them killing his boss, and also he was sworn in and was actually a law to hunt the men that killed his boss. But then the people he's hunting had been, yeah. But that's what I mean. Billy the Kid is different, but like Jesse the James, I said that twice. Jesse James and Frank James, yeah, they were actually awful people. Although now it's getting to the point where they're starting to rob banks and what have you. But yeah, anyway, yeah, that's the reaction.